Well, hello, friends, and thank you one more time for joining me and my dear friend, colleague, and mentor, Tomei Schnitsius. We're going to be addressing another topic here, one in which we've touched on in various ways in previous segments of this series. But I think we're going to go deeper into the issue of what do we mean by ascending. Okay. Is our soul ascending? Are we ascending? What's ascending? And what does that relate to in terms of this thing called the shift? And how many shifts are there? Because the earth seems to be shifting and people are shifting and consciousness is shifting and who knows what else is shifting. So let's dive into that. And Tomei, if you're ready, willing, and able, let's have some fun with and some insight with this topic, please.
Yeah, yeah, it's a big topic and probably not one that most people want to talk about because they don't necessarily have the background of of the truth of understanding it, and so it can be a little bit rough on understanding how this all takes place. And I'm gonna do the best I can to keep as simplistic as possible. Um, if in the end you might get some questions eventually on these podcasts that delve a little bit deeper into it, and I would be happy to answer those questions, whatever they are. But
Well,
to
thank
keep it
you.
simple, I think is the best way of going about it right now.
Okay.
The first thing I think I could, I think a lot of people, at least, no matter what your religion is um, and what your modality is, have heard about the word. The one that was most profound, at least at this point, that I know of. I don't know other ascension situations as far as, uh, say, Buddhist um, or Muslim or so on. I just know about a Christ ascension, of course, but if I remember correctly, most of them are very similar. And in Christ's ascension, he basically came back and resurrected uh, from the tomb. There's a big story behind that too, but I won't get into that. But resurrecting from the tomb, coming out, and Mary Magdalene happened to be the first one to see him, and she didn't even know who he was, but eventually she recognized the voice apparently, and um, when when she recognized it was him by his voice, she wanted to go up and hug him because he was back, and he made the comment of, "Please don't touch me. My body isn't healed yet. My body hasn't risen yet." And so what he was suggesting is that his light body hadn't come into, um, let's say, full activity yet. The electrons and the energies uh, were still working to bring his light body. Um, I think it's called Shade. Is I might be saying it wrong. Is the light body is the robe? They would call it around you the robe of light that was around your body, and it's the transmutation actually of your third dimensional energy cells into light body cells, which means they're vibrating at a very, very high rate. So I'm going to keep it at that because we actually have talked about that already. We've discussed energies in the podcast. We've discussed when we shift when we die into ourselves, when we shift our body from the density of our program or life strategy, and we shift our body to being from our heart, to be heart centered, the cells shift in energy as well. So physically, you change. So you might say you already have shifted in some respect if you're now 51% being directed from your heart instead of your mind. So simplicity says, as soon as I choose that and I actually act upon that, which means I do release a lot of the density and judgments and emotions that I've been holding on to for such a long time that have kept me down. And I now empty myself of those. I welcome in higher frequencies of joy and gratitude, compassion, and so on. I have now shifted my body from a low density energy to a high density energy. That's a shift. So, simply put, ascension is similar. Ascending means sounds like we're going somewhere. It's not necessary that we're going up or we're going somewhere. We are shifting, ascending our physical body into an energetic body, a light body. And any one of us can do this. We don't have to necessarily die on the cross and go into a tomb and then resurrect and then, all the stuff that he had to walk through. He was simply showing us the way. He was just demonstrating in a very crude way what we will be doing as we continue to shift ourselves as consciousness, as a humanity, and also individually to get to where we are actually ascending here in this place along with the earth and with the solar system. So that's a lot that I just said, even though I'm trying to keep it as simply as I can. So understanding that ascending is a shift of energy. And a lot of us have already done some of that work already. It doesn't mean you're going to be left behind if you haven't, but you must choose whether you wish to stay in low density energy or high density energy. It's pretty much of a simple choice in a way. It doesn't mean it's an easy choice because you're giving up a lot of the definitions that you lived by for so long and then replacing them with a new way of experiencing things and not defining things anymore. So, as each one of us decides in our own way and chooses in our own way that, yes, we wish to go there, we wish to go into ourselves, we wish to go within and find a way of transmuting that energy so that we can be in a state that's at a higher frequency. As we continue to do that, we then start walking around on the planet in a different way. We begin to recognize things we never recognized before because as we enliven our energetic field, we also then connect with other energetic fields that are at the same level or higher. And you're going to start seeing things differently than you did before. And we just got done with our last podcast not too long ago and talking about being able to recognize and feel and sense other beings in other worlds. All of a sudden you will start sensing and feeling other energies in this world that have always been there, but you didn't see them because you were seeing things at a very low consciousness energetic place. So things start shifting, things start changing. And as you do that, you start becoming more involved in growing into that energetic field. Now, at the same time that we're working on ourselves, the earth itself is going through an ascension process or a shift. And the scientists now can tell us that that's actually happening. They might not use the word ascension, might not go into the mystery school definitions of how these things are. Instead, they're just going to say the magnetics on the planet are shifting drastically right now, and it's causing a lot of things to happen. The poles are shifting, especially the North Pole. These are all registered opportunities through science to tell us that this is actually happening. So this isn't any mystery school thing. This isn't any spiritual thing. This is actually a physical thing that's happening on the earth right now. And so as the magnetics change on the planet from the inner core of the planet, things start changing on top of the planet. So you see animals passing away because they're losing their directional capacities because it's all based upon the magnetics of the planet. As the North Pole is shifting, which we know it is, it's getting closer to Russia and farther away from Canada. All of a sudden, there is a new North Pole. So your compasses change. The compass within a whale changes. everything begins to get a little crazy because they are now going in directions that they've never gone before because it's all centered on the directional capacity of the magnetics of the planet. That's the scientific aspect of it. But what I'd say to you is that the Earth itself is going through an ascension process because a lot of the things that used to be on the planet are no longer able to be there. So nature itself is shifting. And most, how would I say, some scientists and other organizations out there are telling you it's climate change. I'm not telling you that that's not a part of it, but climate is changing because the magnetics are changing. And as the magnetics change and we get hit by a lot of these solar flares that are coming in from the sun, the solar aspect, our solar system is changing and shifting as well, then it all of a sudden affects the electromagnetics of the planet at the same time. And so it gets a little bit stronger and more direct. The particles that are coming in, the photons coming in from the sun, are very powerful. Without the magnetics around the planet that protect us, it also causes us to go into a lot of tiredness, a lot of depression. Our minds start getting kind of crazy. Things are a little bit more chaotic. You don't sleep at night. You might have, you might feel more grudges with people. You might not feel yourself. You might feel imbalanced. These are all the things that are happening from the shifting of the magnetics and the electrons and the photons that are coming in. The sun is causing this on the planet. The planet itself is changing. So there's a lot happening scientifically, and you can look all this up. I'm not a scientist, so I'm hope I'm explaining it correctly as best I can. But you can look this up. I invite you to look this up. Become educated and informed instead of just believing everything you see in the news. It's more important that as a soul that you don't remain ignorant and that you educate yourself as to what's really happening. So the earth itself is going through its own ascension process, its own internal process of shifting to a higher frequency. And it's almost finished, quite frankly. It doesn't mean that the poles are going to shift, and that's not coming for thousands and thousands of years. Yet the magnetics have started to shift quite recently, very strongly. And so once it settles down back again, it's going to take us time as human beings to be able to adapt to the new magnetics that are there. And some of us that have been doing the work will be able to adapt to it a little quicker. And some that haven't been doing the work, it might take them a little longer. So there'll have to be a little bit more patience for those that are still working on themselves in some capacity. And that's where it comes for some of us who have been doing the work for a while. That's where compassion comes in. That's where service comes in to help assist others to find themselves as quickly as possible so that they can find that balance to be true to themselves. So we have a physical internal ascension process for each one of us, uniquely. I want to make sure this is understood. It's unique for each person. It's not going to be the same for everybody, although some of the aspects of that process, the feelings and the emotions and so on, could be similar. Each one of us has our own density we've carried for such a long time that is energetically different than anyone else. We have different experiences from that's different from anybody else. So the process that we go through to shift and die into ourselves and resurrect ourselves into the 51% of the heart is going to feel different. It's going to look different. So there isn't anything specific that is, a 10-step process or something to go through. We must all be patient with ourselves in knowing that the process is taking place and that we will get through this as long as we continue to follow our hearts. At the same time, the earth is going through it as well. We must be patient with the earth. As you've seen, a lot of the catastrophes that have been happening, and everybody wants to blame it on global warming. I would say to you that it's the magnetic shift of the planet, along with some global climate change, without question. But that is what's really happening. And wherever you live is going to be different than it used to be. It is not going to be the same. I'm not going to tell you what I know how it's going to be. But if you look around, you're starting to get the idea that you probably don't want to live along the coastline so much. There's going to be more hurricanes. They're talking about all the ice melting on the ice caps. Well, that means flooding. That means being on the coastline is going to go, if it goes up an inch, it's going to flood everything. Some of these places are even below the zero line. And so they keep the water out by, other means, but they're not going to be able to anymore. So I'm not trying to create fear for anybody, but start understanding the logic behind this. Don't think that anybody's going to come to your rescue. Don't be ignorant enough to think that you're going to be able to fight all the fires that are happening. Nature is nature. It doesn't care if you're in its way. It's coming. And so to understand that there are other places on the planet to go live that will be safer, let's just say, instead of some of the places you live now, because the earth is going to change. It is changing and it's not stopping. It's coming. So, not to create a fear, but to understand I don't care where you live, what country you live in, there's a safe place within your own country to go live that's safer than other areas. So, use the logic for yourself and also use your heart to let yourself know which way to go. We talked about that in the past podcast about understanding the feelings of your intuition in your heart, the voices that you might hear, the nudgings that you might get. Because of the electromagnetic forces that are happening on the planet coming from the sun and from the solar system, it's also causing an upheaval of spirituality, of people finally starting to listen to their intuition more. It's starting to open up vortexes within people's bodies that have been closed for a while. Some people are a little scared of that, and it's understandable. But remember, is to be as a master of yourself, it's to be open to all things and to listen and to make adjustments and to choose things from your heart. During these times of the shift, it's time to really, really get in touch with that. It's time to really listen to your intuition and hear what it has to say to you. And if you still want to go live in a tornado zone that's been coming every single year, God bless you. That's to me is totally illogical. I mean, you're going to keep rebuilding in the place that keeps being torn down. I mean, it's like, sometimes source or universe wants to get to us. And in some of my workshops, we talked about this a lot. Sometimes the first thing it comes in is a whisper. It says, you need to move over. And you don't listen and you don't move over. And then all of a sudden you get a little slap in the side of your face and says, just move over. And you still don't listen. Okay, then here comes the baseball bat. And finally you get hit on the side of the head and you have to move over from the hit from the baseball bat. And so it's like it'll keep coming until you wake up. And so this is time to wake up. The timing is starting to happen. I'm not telling you when it's going to be over. I have no idea. I have heard we have 6 years left to prepare. For what? I don't know. That within 6 years, the shift will be completed on the earth. And if that's true, then the magnetics will start to settle down and we will start having to work with ourselves internally to match up with what the magnetics are. So don't wait for the baseball bat is my my comment. Listen to the whisper and make choices accordingly for yourself. And don't be ignorant. Do your work. Understand there's sources you can go to. There's so many books out there and so many indigenous cultures have warned us about this and have talked about this. And the Mayan culture, the Hopi culture, the Inca culture, the Egyptian mystery schools, um, on and on in Tibet and in Buddhism. And there's so many places and so many modalities and so many indigenous cultures that said the time is now. Everyone points to this. And we think we know better. Well, I think that's just being ignorant. Why not prepare yourself, at least internally, to make the shift? and understand what it's going to take for you to release the densities you're holding, especially within your emotional body that have been there for so long.
You seem to, for me, be juggling a set of balls. Okay.
Yeah.
And I would like us to clarify what those balls are, at least for me. Help Bill out.
Well, give me ball
And
number one.
yes, I will. In terms of the kind of what affects what, or maybe they're not quite related. All right.
Okay.
Um, there is the ball called shift.
Hmm.
The physical shift
Yeah.
is in the um, electromagnetism, that is the electromagnetic core of
Hmm.
both our planet
Hmm.
and the sun
Hmm.
and the solar system,
Hmm.
etc. It is
Yeah.
shifting.
Yes.
Now, that's a ball in and of itself. That ball says we are going to have to accommodate to the shift.
Correct.
So I'll stick with words that start with A for right now. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to have to accommodate. Now, therefore, we're going to have to be aware
Hmm.
of the shift.
Hmm.
Okay. And sensitive to how to accommodate that might be more congenial.
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
That strikes me as being different from the issue of are we therefore ascending because those shifts are happening, or is ascension, is spiritual ascension of the different from the accommodation we need to make because of these things
Yeah.
increasing, decreasing, moving around, etc.
They're intertwined. And when I say intertwined, if if I don't allow myself to do the work that we've talked about, which is the inner work of releasing uh, the densities and the emotions and so on of who I thought I was, if I don't do that work, um, then I will be ignorant to what's going on and will not be a part of what's happening. It's going to be very hard for me to meld with what's happening, to accommodate, what's happening. I will not see it clearly. I will still be thinking from my my mind. Um, I might even be listening to a lot of sources outside of me that still wish to control me up until that point. So I keep doing what they want me to do as opposed to listening to my own heart. Um, and so there's a lot to that. Um, my suggestion here is to again get away from the news and do your own search for the information that's happening because actually it's out there. It's written in a lot of the scientific journals. If you wanted to go there just to find out, what's going on with the magnetism, look it up. You can. It's all been posted. If you want to know spiritually what's going on, you can look it up as well. If you want, you can look up the name Blavatsky, and she's got manuals upon manuals that will tell you all about it. And it's really dense, hard reading, but it's all there, all the same. Alice Bailey's books from Raj Kuala, which is a ascended master, is all there as well. Is all the information that you could ever want from, say, a mystery school or from the indigenous cultures. You can look up what the Hopis said is going to happen. You can look up what the Mayans said by the calendar they had. What does it really mean? What's going on? There's so much information out there, and people are being led astray by people who want to um, transpose that information in a way they can do it so that they can control you. No different than a lot of religions. The Gospels in Christianity were written by men. They weren't written by God. I hate to tell you, but and then in I think it was 300 A.D. or 400 A.D. or at the Nicene Creed,
325.
Yeah, okay. It's like all of a sudden now everything was thrown out that they didn't want you to know, and they just said, this is the way it's going to be, and this is what it means. Um, Talk about arrogance and not letting people feel for themselves what the truth is. And now we know we have the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, we have the Gospel of Mary, Gospel of Thomas that have been found. We've talked about that before in the past
Yes.
podcast. You can now order those books. You can actually read what is in those Gospels and what was really happening that the church doesn't want you to know, and find out what your heart tells you about what you're reading. Again, that's just one avenue to follow. So over the centuries, we've been led to believe a lot of untruths because people wanted to have power over us. We know that's true. That's not an untruth. I'm not telling you something you don't know. But the point is, how long are you going to sit there and stay ignorant and not do your own work and not do your own study and not do your own education and not do your own work within yourself? This is what Yeshua came down for. This is what the masters came down for. They've been teaching this forever, for thousands of years. And they keep telling you to go within, go within, go within. And what's going within? It's finding your truth. It's finding your connection. It's finding all the beautiful qualities that you have within that you've never used because you've been told they're worthless. You've been told you're worthless. There's so much here. It goes beyond anything I can share with anybody in just, an hour or half hour. But I can invite you to do your own education. I've always said, even my workshops and my classes and the healing ceremonies we've done and the channeling I've always done, don't believe a thing I tell you. Don't believe one thing I'm telling you on any of these podcasts. Go find out for yourself if it's true. Go find out for yourself if this feels right to you. See how you can bring it into your life and there's any changes that you would make because of one thing you might have heard that rang true with your heart. I don't have all the answers and I don't claim to have them, but I sure have done a lot of investigation. There's other great teachers out there and people who investigated like Greg Braden and Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza. There's even more. There's podcasts that are really authentic, that are out there, interviews that are really authentic, and are trying to help everybody find their truth within themselves so we can connect with each other. The whole point of this new magnetism that's coming in, the whole point of the shift, all of it, the shift within yourself, the shift within the planet, the shift within the solar system, is to bring unification, is to finally have us look at each other as one and accept each other for who we are in our hearts, not what we look like on the outside, not what we think, not what we own, not where we live, not what we believe in, but to accept each other as truth. The next step in the shift later, and maybe this is another subject for us, Bill. I imagine every time we talk, we always find another one.
That's
Um,
true. I'm taking notes.
yeah. Um, and I'm sorry if I'm a little bit strong in this podcast because I, I'm just trying to really hit home, with the power of my words, to wake you up. I want to see everybody make it. I want to see everyone make it. There's no reason that nobody doesn't make it. And I can't drive that home enough. It's very emotional for me. Um, and I just want to see everybody get there. And so sometimes I come out and speak really strongly. And sometimes the words that come through are very strong. And so if any of you are feeling a little bit put back by the strength of my words today, I just want to explain that this is very powerful. It's powerful for you. It will be powerful for you. And for the first time, you might be able to stand on your own 2 feet and be strong and empowered in your heart and feel so much different than you've ever felt before. And we can start accepting each other for who we are. The next step up after the shift is what's known as pure duality. We're in a judgment, duality, a black and white duality, a good or bad duality right now. And that's what we've been in for a long time, hundreds of thousands of years. They are now uncovering civilizations that came here way before anything that they can comprehend. They are not finding in the findings of these what do you call them? Not architectural, but archaeology finds. They're finding within these places. They're not finding any guns, arrows, swords. They're finding no aspects of war, fighting. They're finding nothing but unification. They're finding nothing but how people got along. They're not finding any utensils that were used to hurt people at all. They're not finding skeletons. They're not finding burial sites of people that have been maimed. They haven't found any of that yet, and it doesn't make any sense to them. What makes sense to me is that we are now starting to uncover civilizations that were here long before we thought and had come down to live in unity. And we have talked about coming back home again in some of the podcasts and what home really means. And home is of the heart. You've heard that line before. Coming back home to the heart allows us to accept all things. It helps us understand that we are here not to harm each other, but to serve each other. And that sounds really out there right now as you look around in the chaos of what's happening on the planet. But these things have to happen so that we can finally see that this doesn't work anymore. This is not where we are going home to. And as the magnetics come onto the planet and the planet changes and we change and the solar system change, all that will begin the process of us once again coming back together for each other and in our hearts. And I truly, truly believe that. I see around us a lot of harm, of course. I don't believe it's going to be here too much longer. I don't know what that means, but I just don't believe it's going to be here. The first time I saw the war in Ukraine on the news, it shocked me. It shocked me in such a way because I finally felt in my own heart that war was finally over. I mean, mass war. And when I heard it, I was absolutely in shock. Like, what do you mean? That's just not possible anymore. Why would we even be doing that? And yet there it was, and escalated. And now Gaza escalated. And now other places are escalating as well. And so I guess all that has to happen because that kind of energy has to fight to stay alive because the energy on the planet has shifted so drastically that it can't stay alive, but it's going to do everything that it can, just like your own ego. As your ego tries to fight to stay alive, your program, you're going to be faced with a lot of choices that are going to be difficult for you because it's going to want you to come back into the darkness of your ego, into the choices that you've always made. It's no different for the earth. It's no different for humanity. It's no different for every planet in the solar system. It's no different for most of the planets in the universe. They're all going through the same thing. And so this is a mass shift. It's just not a shift that's happening on our planet. It's happening everywhere. And we have an opportunity to be participants. And I invite you to be one.
The shift is from to me, is fundamentally from a 3D version paradigm of who we are, what our choices are, what our essential being is, what our relationship to God is, what our relationship to each other is, which is basically all based on separation, and
Mm-hmm.
separation induces fear.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And when
Yeah,
you say the word shift, what happens is people get even more fearful
they
because
can. Yeah.
because well, most people who are tied to the 3D version of everything
Yep.
because it looks like reality itself is just going to evaporate or implode or something of that sort.
Hmm.
And therefore, doing this work elevates your perspective. It brings out greater awareness of a whole range of possibilities. Like you said, there are things all over the internet now,
Hmm.
within YouTubes, etc. Not all of it is wisdom, but there are many, many things discussing the nature of this shift, the elevation of our consciousness, what that opens up for us as possibilities, etc. You just
Yes.
have to, from my experience, you just have to. I hate to use the word dabble, but you need to explore and test enough of these to say, what really feels real about this, and where do I want to start doing some deeper learning?
Yeah. And again, like in what you're explaining, it's a personal choice for each individual. Um, and so sometimes we can get into a group that's doing this work, and the group kind of carries us for a while, and that's okay. The group can carry you for a while and help you see things, and you feel so good when you're in the group, and then when you're not in the group, you don't feel so good because now you're back in society, and you start feeling the densities out there and so on. And then you want the group back again. So then you go to the next workshop, and then you go to the next workshop, and there's this circle of keep going around, and you really haven't learned anything because you're becoming dependent upon the group. And so there's that understanding too that we can become dependent upon some of these things that are on YouTube and some of these things that are, you can find in Google or some of the books and stuff. And my suggestion here is to be very careful to not become a Alice Bailey, groupie, to not become a Blavatsky groupie, to not become a Yeshua groupie or a Mary Magdalene groupie or any of these, but to take what they have to show you and experience it for yourself. And then use it in a way that you can project it into humanity and the consciousness that's at a higher frequency than the lower frequency you were at before you made that choice. You will feel it, you will sense it, you will know it. And when that happens, you will want to grow more. You'll go deeper, you'll search more, you'll look for other books, you'll look for other opportunities, other, say, meditations. There's thousands and thousands of meditations. Who's to say that, well, you know what, this one meditation, that's the one, and I teach it. So when you get this meditation, you're good, you know, and I will teach it to you. We have like 10, 15,000 classes to take it all the time. And you just keep coming and we'll keep doing it. Well, of course, now you've just placed yourself into the need of that meditation as opposed to just using it one time or a few times and saying, yeah, that's good. But here's another one over here. And this one feels better in my heart. Oh, and here's another one over here. And this one feels better in my overall body, and start to, make different choices and grow into the universal infinite possibility of choices and opportunities that await you, and not be hooked into just one way. And so I guess it's a warning that I'm issuing to a lot of people to make sure that they don't get hooked into something, but they use something to be able to grow themselves internally, as opposed to just becoming, it's just like going into a new belief structure and getting rid of the old belief structure. Um, and you're just trapping yourself into something that's just new. That's all. So,
What what this connects back to for me in what you have just said is that we have been conditioned to hear the words, whether we believe it or not, but to hear the words, the one true religion, the one blessed
Yeah,
people or whatever that is, the
yeah, right.
one or the one that, because this is the right one.
Yeah,
And that that engenders a, we call it closed-mindedness, but it's a closed-heartedness
yeah,
as to what else exists that resonates equally high, okay, and elevates as much and expands as much if we would open up to it.
yeah,
But we've been conditioned that there's the one true way,
yeah,
okay, and therefore dot 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 dot, dot. And we
yeah,
stay prisoners in the mentality of it's the right wrong
yeah,
paradigm.
yeah. It's a dualistic paradigm that we're down here, the judgment paradigm. Um, and one of the, was I going to say this? The understandings um, of that's out there, all the things that we've talked about, that's available to us. And you talked about fear a little while ago. Um, there is there is this drive for any one of us, I believe, that I got to get it right.
Yes,
And okay, all right, I'm on board. I gotta get Ascension right. I gotta tell
I
me how to
went
get it
through
right.
that. I went through that.
Yeah,
When I
I,
started hearing about these things and
yeah.
things were coming to me about these different avenues, etc., I wanted to be sure I did it right.
You got to get it right. And and there's a lot of people out there that will truly help you get it right. And they'll be happy to take your money to get it right, their power to get it right. Um, and as again, like you're saying, you just get lost in it, and you got a closed heart now instead of an open heart. And so, if you can work on yourself, just work on yourself and start releasing the triggers and start releasing those things that even the statement, I got to get it right. There is no right. There's just experience. There isn't anything right or wrong, actually. And so if if anything, if you just come from your heart more than you don't, you're on your way. That's not even getting it right. That's just experiencing everything truly in the moment. That's You're on your way. Um, and so each person, it's different for each person. That's the thing. It's like I can't tell you if you got it right by experiencing in the heart. I don't know. I don't know what you've experienced. I can't tell you if it's right or wrong or you're on the right path or anything like that. I can certainly suggest some things, I guess, but in really, when it comes down to it, I can't tell if you're right or wrong. You're the only
Well,
one that knows,
well, you
and nobody
must
wants to
not
take
be,
ownership.
you
There's the other
must
thing
not,
that we could
yeah,
talk about probably is ownership.
you must not be a very good light worker because you don't have the answer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The ownership comes back again. The um, To take responsibility for the choices we make, um, to forgive ourselves for the mistake we've made, and really feel that inside, so that we can carry a new energy and let go of the past. There's so much to all this, of course. Um, but again, coming back to the heart every time, um, the heart, it has so much for us. And for each person, it's different, but there's so much there. Um, and many, many have found it. Some of them they call ascended masters. Um, and they've gone somewhere. I guess you could say they're laughing right now. Actually, my boys, because they're like, yeah, we're up here somewhere. Um, they're all over. I mean, there is no time in where they're at. It's just instantaneous, consciousness. It's just available, and um, the understanding that there's some place to go is not the real understanding. There's the understanding of there's some place to be. and that's it.
I went through, I'm going to say, a decade of searching spiritually for home.
Mm.
Where was home? I wanted to get home. I needed to find out home. Where was the home of my soul? I mean, and I finally got to the point where I realized there's no there.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
the home is right inside here. And
yep.
that's where the surrender and the openness
Hmm.
lies.
Yep.
When the search externally for home, you know, living in the
Hmm.
right area, living in the right country, living in the right whatever it is, then I'll be happy and wonderful. And no matter where you go, there's impending climate issues or earthquakes. I mean, it's no matter where you go externally, it's not the
Yeah.
answer.
No,
Okay,
it's not.
that's all. It's not, it's not. Well,
It's
thank you.
kind of
I
like,
have
yeah, it's kind of like a relationship. You know, we keep trying so hard to find the right one, you know? Like, oh, that one didn't work out, but okay, I'll give it a shot again. I get to that one, and you just keep trying and trying, and you go to the bars and you go into the apps on your computer, and you know, you're doing all the dating apps and you're doing all this stuff. You're trying so hard, and you're like, nothing's happening. And I'm tired. I'm tired of trying so hard. I'm just not going to do anything anymore. And like you say, you surrender to it. And then you go to the local grocery store and you bump into some woman around the corner and you look at each other like, oh my God. And you say, what? I have nothing to say either. And you look at each other again. And you're like, well, I'll go get some coffee. And you end up, and there's your relationship because you finally let go of what it is that you thought you were looking for and you let it come to you. So there is that kind of presence in the journey, is that sometimes we try so hard that we got to get it right, you know, and we finally just let go of trying to get it right and just say, I just want to be in the moment. Let me just let things come to me and let things open me up in whatever way it might be, and it'll be okay. It'll just be okay. And that's a surrender. And when you do, then you find your home is doing that all the time. That's your home, experiencing all things in the moment, and you just start enjoying what you're doing. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you're just enjoying what you're doing. It doesn't have to
that
be anything specific.
that just feels too simple.
Yeah, well, we try. I said in the beginning, today we're going to simplify things. And I know I didn't. I know it kind of went off into maybe la la land for some people. But in the end, maybe we came back to simplification again, hopefully.
Well, thank you for jumping into this and clarifying the balls that were in the air
Yeah,
and the dynamics among them. We're in a shift, and the shift is one giant opportunity for us to go inside
yeah,
um,
it really is.
and really evoke what's in the heart and the incredible power and potential of the heart.
Yeah,
So thank you for this. There will be more.
you're welcome.
But you have shared so much in all of these. If I can give you an assignment in departing here, just think about um, making some of your channels
Mm,
available with us through Spirit Partners,
okay,
because
I
I
can do
have
that.
found, I mean, almost every time I have listened to one of the channels and participated in those sessions, I've said, "Oh, he did this one for me. This one came through for." I mean, this is exactly right now what I needed to hear is the issues for me. Thank you, group, Tom's group, okay, for, it was just so right on. and
Okay.
so valuable.
We'll
So
we'll have we'll make that happen.
we'll make that happen, and there will be more. Thank you again, and thank you for being with us
Yep.
and sharing in this. Um, I can't express enough gratitude for you being there as an audience and your willingness to be open and your willingness to grow within. Thank you,
Yep.
and
Thanks,
see you
guys, for
next
being here.
time.
See ya.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.